Blaming your childhood and or your parents for why you behave badly is not helpful in creating a loving relationship. Welcome to my Broken to Brave podcast. I'm Donna Barnes. And today I want to talk about owning your stuff, right? I mean, look, we are all a product of our childhood. And most of it didn't come from a completely functional. In fact, there was a Far Side card that used to have like a big auditorium and a banner that said, "Welcome to the first annual Functional Families Anonymous." And there was only one person sitting in the audience, right? So like, I get it that, we all have our baggage and we all have our issues. And I've long said that in finding a partner, it's about finding someone whose issues don't clash with your issues in a negative way, right? So, in unpacking your childhood, you need to own it. And it's really valuable to not blame your parents or whatever your toxic upbringing you're focused on to make an excuse for why you're not good at a relationship. I mean, that's on you now, right? If you're a full-blown adult, especially if you're 30 and older, because let's face it, we now know that the reasoning and decision-making part of your brain doesn't finish developing until you're almost 26. So until you're 26, you can kind of get away with a lot more, right? Older people don't expect as much from you and you're still figuring stuff out. But if you're 30 or above and you're still blaming some sort of toxic childhood that you had for why you're not functioning well in a relationship, that's on you. And I'd like to encourage you to stop blaming anything at all and just being empowered about moving forward in a positive way in what you can control. Because here's the thing about our past. We can't change it. We can't change anything that even happened 5 minutes ago, right? It's in the past. So I think in trying to be your best self in moving forward in hopefully an empowered, loving relationship, you need to own your stuff, right? It's exceptionally helpful to have someone to talk to about it, right? Ideally, a professional, a therapist, a coach. I coach people. I'd be more than happy to talk to you and to really sort through why you do the things you do and how you have unhealed things perhaps from your childhood that are causing you to do the things you do. And if you're watching this and you've never ever had any kind of therapy or read any kind of self-help book, I highly recommend that, right? Or at least talk to me, because I would love to explore it with you deeper. And yeah, and to that point, while I am not a therapist, I've read an awful lot of books and I had an amazing therapist for about a decade. I'm actually really good at helping people identify deep root causes of why they do the things they do, but then owning responsibility for it and taking action to do things better. And to simply blame, yeah, well, this is, I'm this way because of that. This is the whole ABCs of me, right? People say, right? So, it is what it is. No, that's not true. People can change if they want to. So you have to want to. And it is hard work, right? It doesn't happen overnight. What I'm trying to suggest is if you're struggling to have healthy relationships, it might be because you're still blaming your childhood instead of owning it and taking self-responsibility for your own actions. And yes, it's unfortunate if we've had some darker things in our past. And it is difficult to get past. And trust me, I can tell you firsthand stuff that I've been through. Like I actually was talking to a girlfriend who has another podcast about the Me Too movement, right? Like I have been very open about saying it's called Me Too because just about everybody has a story. Yeah, me too, right? So I think, yes, it does cause you to think differently about things and feel differently about things. And it can cause you to struggle in relationships and creating emotional intimacy and getting close to somebody. So I'm just trying to put the thought in your head that, yes, it's helpful to identify the things from our childhood that are standing in our way, basically. But then put it behind you. Name it, identify it, and decide how you're going to move forward with better behavior, right? We all are responsible for our own behavior. And yes, it has been colored by our past, but we have free will to choose to do it differently moving forward. And that's kind of what I'm trying to encourage you with this podcast. Blame is not helpful, right? I've frequently said a blamer is a massive red flag. If you're on a date with somebody or you're getting to know somebody and they blame something else or someone else for everything about them, that's a blamer. And that is not healthy, first off, because if you're blaming somebody else, you have no control over that, right? It makes you angry and maybe passive aggressive, but you're blaming somebody else gives you absolutely no control over it. So I'm trying to empower you to take control over your own behavior and your own actions and moving forward as a survivor, right? They call it. But, depending on what your past is, I like the word empowered. You just want to be empowered. You want to be the best version of yourself as an empowered man or woman who is fully participating in today's world, looking forward, not stuck in the past, hopefully open and available to the life that is in front of you. Because that's the biggest piece, right? It's about staying present, not living in the past. Living in the past is when you're still working through childhood issues look, I've said to a lot of people, unfortunately, my mother died when I was only 18 years old. And until I was 30, I was kind of incapable of talking about my mother in any setting without at least tearing up. I clearly had hurt feelings that were unresolved around that, right? And then, then I had the amazing therapist, right? So I can talk about my mother without being emotional, but that's exactly my point. I think you need to address something and work on it to take the emotion out of it. So if you're dating someone and getting to know somebody, if they ask a question about something that is an issue for you, it's not going to bring up that emotion and cause you to seem unstable, right? Because that's a massive red flag you're waving in the eyes of your date, which you really don't want to do. And the sad thing is if you haven't worked through those childhood issues, you think it's creating emotional intimacy to now talk about that with the person in front of you. But if it's waving a bright red flag to them that you haven't healed those issues, that's not creating emotional intimacy. It's pushing them farther away. And that's my entire point, to stop blaming your childhood and to be self-empowered in how you are surviving in today's world. And staying present in today's world is really that biggest piece of that. Journaling is very helpful. I know I say this frequently, but like writing down on paper, pen on paper or pencil, whatever you prefer, right, is exceptionally helpful. Really identifying bad behavior, doing an exercise of writing down maybe some of the bigger arguments that you've had. I wrote about this in my book, Giving Up Junk Food Relationships. There's an exercise that I created about really identifying your personal behaviors in past relationships and how you handled it and how you could have handled it better, and really examining those things so that you don't keep repeating stuff, right? The definition of insanity is to keep trying the same thing and expecting a different result. So if you have those unresolved issues, resolving them so that you can get a better outcome, right? Something is different if you resolve that. And you don't know what you don't know. Really going back, if you, in past relationships, or even just in your current relationship, if you've had past arguments, revisit it and be really honest with yourself about your participation in it, right? Not being that blamer. And if you could really look at it and decide what you could have done differently to either be more loving to your partner or more just endearing to your partner, I think will help you going forward in your next relationships. We're all responsible for taking care of our own needs, and we're all responsible for our own actions. And there are consequences to actions. Making excuses for why you do something or don't do something is never helpful, right? Making an excuse for something doesn't resolve it in any way. But looking for a solution in how to do things better going forward means you can constantly continue to grow and become a better version of yourself. The Equinox Gym by me on Broadway on the Upper West Side used to have a sign in the window that said, outrunning previous versions of myself. And I think that's a very helpful slogan to live by, because we don't know what we don't know. And as we encounter behaviors or situations, and I always say you're not going to know how you never know how you're going to feel about something until you're actually in it. So if things are coming up for you, if you can recognize, okay, look, I know you just did that and that really upset me, but it's not about you. I have this issue because when I was a kid, this used to happen, and I'm going to work on that. I'm going to try not to be reactionary about that anymore. And that's the whole value of exploring your childhood. We are all products of our childhood. And if you didn't have the most word cleaver, happy, wonderful childhood, or even if you did, right? Like there's still always stuff that we have, that we had hurt feelings around something, or we didn't get something that we really wanted, or we didn't feel heard, I think is the biggest piece of it, right? Needing to feel heard. That's all stuff that you can change as an adult. You have free will to become anything that you work hard enough to achieve. The more that you can control about your behavior, the better your relationships will be. And yes, you can make behavioral requests from your partner of what you would like them to help you with. Being empowered and taking responsibility for your actions, even if it's based on something from your childhood, I think is really attractive. If you can identify, hey, look, I'm so sorry. This is an issue for me from my childhood because this used to happen, which is how you can also foster emotional intimacy, right? But if you're self-aware enough to recognize that if your partner did something that really made you angry, like more than it should have, but you can identify and apologize. Hey, look, I'm so sorry. That wasn't about you. When I was a kid, this happened, and it's kind of just stuck with me. And I know I overreacted to that, and I so apologize, and I'm going to work on that and try not to do that anymore. Right? That's exactly what I'm talking about in owning your stuff. I think is really effective in, first of all, fostering emotional intimacy, but really maintaining a healthy, loving relationship. And the slippery slope, I think, is as you start to get healthy, you start to see issues in other people too, right? The healthier you get, it's easier to pick out issues in other people, which makes me really good at coaching, right? I'm very good at giving you insight into what's going on with you if you're interested in coaching with me. But the value of self-growth and knowing yourself is that you can recognize bad behavior in a partner, that not in a way of wanting to fix them. Most people don't respond well to you trying to fix them, but you could certainly make a suggestion. Hey, can I offer a suggestion about something? This is something that I really benefit from. I worked on, and I made, I think, progress in getting past that. I'd love to talk to you about that if you're interested, and how it might be helpful to you as well. Anything that you put forward to your partner in a positive way, that you're trying to help, not like you have to do this or you need to do this or I really think you should do this, right? Like, but just, hey, could I make a suggestion? I think can really help the communication, especially in a romantic relationship. One of the biggest reasons that relationships only last 3 to 6 months is because once you start really getting into the seriously getting to know you phase, if your issues clash is the biggest one, right? You really need to find somebody whose childhood issues don't clash with your childhood issues, right? It's like kind of trying to put together two sides of a magnet that doesn't work. But as you start getting to know somebody, I think, and sometimes it's helpful if, similar backgrounds, I think is very helpful when you're getting to know somebody. But if somebody had a little more trauma in their childhood, I think it's helpful if your partner understands that, but perhaps had a healthier childhood. Because unfortunately, broken people are attracted to broken people frequently, or there's a lot of rescuers that are attracted to broken people because they like fixing broken people. It makes them feel better about themselves. All of that is dysfunctional, right? It's normal, I think, to want to help your partner. And if you're not going through the same trauma, healing from trauma that your partner was, then you can actually be more helpful. There's different ideas or just way of life that you can bring to somebody that perhaps didn't get that, which can be really valuable. I think if you're open to hearing how someone else does something, if it's something that has been troubling you, it might help you get through it. I am a fan of talking to your partner about your childhood and things that troubled you from it so that they can understand you. And so that if something happens and you're having some sort of a meltdown or an argument, it's clear to them, okay, although if you're that partner, it's helpful if you're not saying things like, oh, I get this isn't about me. This is about your childhood. This is like don't throw things back in someone's face. There's no quicker way to infuriate somebody than to violate their confidence in something that they shared with you, to throw that back at them in a negative way. I think you can't come back from. But if you have talked about your childhood stuff and you can really recognize what are triggers for your partner, then maybe now you can not make an effort to not do things to trigger that issue if you're well aware of what it is, and you won't take it personally, right? If you know it's not about you, but you recognize when you do whatever the thing is that it bothers your partner a lot, maybe you can stop doing it. So yeah, just something to think about. If you're struggling with your childhood issues and getting over things that happened in your childhood, or you're really angry at a parent or disconnected from a parent or lost a parent that you can't make amends with, because that's a slippery slope, right? Like that's hard. I'm just encouraging you to own your behavior in today. Find a better way to acknowledge things that you know are going to kind of push your buttons a little bit. So hopefully they don't push your buttons. And hopefully your partner is not pushing your buttons, right? So the more you know about yourself, the more you can share with your partner. Taking care of your own needs and your own behavior is very attractive, and I think will be very helpful to you in creating a loving relationship. Let me know if you need extra help. I am available for coaching. You can find the link in the description below. And I always like to hear your comments or questions. And I look forward to seeing you in my next podcast.